All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. I have the participant list up on my screen, so if anybody comes in, I might pause for a second to admit them to the meeting. But thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm very excited that we're once again in grant season. So this is going to be a pretty brief orientation just on this year's grant program, the application process, and so on. So first things first, I do want to mention that this meeting is being recorded. So if you want to ask a question in the middle of the meeting, it will be recorded and we're going to be posting it on our website. If you prefer to wait to ask your questions at the end of the meeting, I will cut those out so you won't be included in the recording. So just be aware of that as we move forward. So quickly going over the agenda for today. So we'll first do a brief introduction into the grant program. We'll go over this year's timeline. Then we'll get into kind of program details and talk about grant elements and grant types. I want to go over a resource guide and give you guys links to all the important resources to get you through this season of grants. I want to talk about what's new this year, and then we'll go through an application walkthrough. So I'll actually log on to the application so you can see it, and we'll go through all the different components of that. I'll throw out some application submission tips, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So if there's any kind of lasting questions, I'll be able to answer them hopefully today. So let us get started with first just some background on the community grant program. So since the year 2000, the City Council has awarded grants to local nonprofit organizations. In 2019, the City Council developed Policy 28, which officially governs the program. Each year, staff, so myself as the grant administrator, evaluates the grant program and gives the City Council an opportunity to adjust the program. So we did that last week on February 6th, or 2 weeks ago now, last week. Last week on February 6th, the City Council reviewed Policy 28 and voted on a few minor changes. And we'll go over what those changes were in a couple of slides. But as I mentioned, I'm the program administrator for the grant program, and my goals are really to create a simple and straightforward and clear application process for all of our applicants. I love building relationships with the nonprofit community, and I think it kind of improves both of our experiences going through to this program. I want to provide you as the nonprofit community with resources inside and out of this grant program. There's funding opportunities all around San Diego, and I hope that I can be a resource for you guys to go out and solicit those. And then of course, my number one goal is to be completely transparent throughout this process. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you don't know how to do something, I want to be there to help and assist however I can. So now let's go over the timeline for this year's grant program. So the grant application actually opens tomorrow, February 15th. I will have it set to open probably about 8 a.m. Basically, whenever I get in the office, I'll turn it on. And so then you'll be able to use the links on the website and access the application. The grant application will close 6 weeks from then, which will be March 31st at midnight. March 31st is a Sunday, so I recommend, try working to get it done on the Friday because I'm not going to be working Sunday night at midnight. So if there's anything catastrophic happening, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to help you, but that is when it officially closes. On May 23rd, the Cultural Arts Commission will review the arts grants. This is an annual process where the Arts Commission reviews the grants and gives input to then go to the City Council. On June 4th, the City Council will adopt the city's budget. And at that point, that's when we will know exactly how much funding is available for the year. And then on June 18th, the City Council will consider and allocate the grants. All of these dates are tentative, but I'd say that they're pretty set in stone. I believe the June dates are officially set in stone unless we have a special meeting. So you can definitely use this as a guide going forward through the process. So shifting gears a little bit, more so talking about the actual grant program. If you've applied to the grant program before, you're probably already familiar with these, but as a little refresher, the city's grant program is broken down into 4 grant elements, and then each application is applied under a type as well. So for the grant elements, we have 4 of them. That's arts and culture, community pride, sense of place, economic development, and social services. So that's kind of like the big picture. What is your application or organization trying to achieve? So you apply under one of those categories. So once you start your application, one of those categories, you can also choose your grant type. So these grant types are you applying for a one-time purchase? Are you applying for seed money, special events, recurring events or activities, or services? I would say just kind of broadly, and we'll get into this a little bit more later in the presentation, the grant types aren't too important. They definitely don't impact your score or how we view your application. There are some parameters with some of the grant types, but not really. Most grant applications will apply under recurring event or activity or special events, and that's totally fine. It's pretty all-encompassing. We really just want to know if it is a one-time purchase. It kind of helps the grant readers realize that it's like a one big investment up front, but otherwise the grant types don't matter as much. So kind of to expand on that, choosing the grant elements or the category is more important because you want to choose one that best aligns with your organization and your proposal. I do want to mention that there is no competitive advantage to applying in more than one element or in one versus another or one type versus another. So we really just have these elements here to kind of help guide you, and whatever best aligns with your purpose and mission and proposal, that's where you should apply under. Organizations are allowed to submit up to 3 grant applications, and there's no restriction on what category you apply to. So if you want to do one in arts and culture, one in social services, one in community pride, sense of place, that's totally acceptable. Or if you want to apply for 3 grants in arts and culture, you're also allowed to do that. I have a link here to the community grant. It's a document called Program Instructions. And so I had made this document last year, and it's kind of just a quick little 4-pager that breaks down everything about the grant program. It's kind of a summary sheet. It breaks down the grant types. It breaks down the grant elements. It includes the grant evaluation rubric, so you can reference those as you're writing your application. And then at the back page here, it also has some like brief summary, high-level submission instructions, so you can get all your documents ready. And then it has just some quick notes on what is and isn't allowed in the grant program, as well as the timeline, which is also helpful. So I recommend referencing this document throughout the grant season if you have questions. If this document doesn't answer your questions, of course you can come to me, but this should be a good starting place. So the next thing, kind of going off of that, is I wanted to provide a resource guide in this presentation. So this PowerPoint presentation will be posted on the city's website, so you can go back and reference it if you need to. But this is just kind of a 1-pager quick resource guide that has links to all the different things that should be helpful as you go through the application process. So the first of which being, of course, the community grant website page. So I've been building this out and it'll be completely live tomorrow, but this is what it kind of looks like. Again, has the timeline, has some information on the grant program, and it'll have some different links here at the bottom as well. The second thing on the resource guide that I have listed is policy 28. So again, this is the official document that the city uses, to govern the program. Let me go like this, there we go. So this is the kind of official document that we use when we're assessing the program and evaluating the program. And if you haven't read it, or if you're new to the community grant program, I do recommend checking it out. It has a lot of great information and basically is what I always use to administer the program. So I recommend reading through it. if you have the desire, the chance to. It can be helpful to answer questions. And then the third little resource that I have here is that program instruction that we just went over. Last year, I introduced something called office hours for the grant program, and I held it every Friday from 10 to 11. And I think it was really great to do that. And a lot of you guys stopped in and asked questions or just popped in to say hi. So I'm going to be hosting the office hours again this year. It's really just an open opportunity. Pop in anytime you'd like. If you're working on your application, I can answer questions. If you're having issues with the software, I can also try to help. So the office hours are a really great time to just get one-on-one time with me, and hopefully I can answer any question that you may have. And of course, on the resource guide, I hope that I am your biggest resource through this process. And so my contact information is below there. Most of you in this meeting, I think, already know and have all of that. But if you ever need it, it is right here on this presentation. So now going into what's new for the grant program this year. So by and large, the grant program is pretty much the same as last year with a few minor changes. So the first change that the City Council approved on February 6th was a new cap at $125,000. So this will be the cap for applications as well as for an organization. So unlike last year where there were kind of two different cap numbers, now it's just one baseline cap. So if you want to apply for one grant for 125 or 3 grants that equate to 125, you're more than welcome to do that. Just know that 125 is that cap for all organizations. The second minor change that the City Council approved was doing a 25% allocation per grant category as a baseline. So if you watch the meeting or listen to it, I do want to make this really clear that this is not going to change the final allocations. This 25% allocation per the 4 grant elements is really just going to be used as a guide for me and for the grant readers when we're reviewing the applications and coming up with that funding recommendation. As always, the City Council will have the authority on June 18th to move grants around and move money around as they see fit. This 25% is just really going to help us as administrators to kind of review the applications and, score them and give funding recommendations and things like that. So don't be scared when you see the 25%. It doesn't mean that every category is now going to get an equal amount. We're just using it as kind of a guideline, which we haven't really done in the past. A couple administrative changes that I also wanted to mention. An update to the application is that I have created 4 different applications depending on what grant element you are applying to, and the application questions are tailored to that grant element. So if you're applying for arts and culture, the program narrative questions are going to look a little bit different than social services. And this was after a couple years of feedback now working on this program. It's not really a program that's one size fits all. Arts grants are very different than social services grants. And so I think that it's fair to be evaluated differently. It's not, we didn't increase the number of questions or, change anything drastically. It'll be very similar to last year. It'll just line up with that grant elements rubric a little bit better. Another administrative change that we are implementing is an updated grant reader process. So this is the first year that we're going to be kind of having like a meeting with the grant readers or discussion with the grant readers after they submit their scores. Last year was the first year that we introduced providing comments to the applicants from the grant readers. And there was definitely some concern there of grant readers having different opinions and perspectives and drastically different scoring methods. So this year, we're going to kind of work on having a consensus amongst the grant readers. So I'll be administering that during the grant reader process and just having them discuss their scores in a little bit more detail, which should provide a little bit more clarity for grant applicants when they are questioning why they're getting scores that they are. The last administrative change that I wanted to mention, and you don't have to worry about this today, but just looking forward, if you are awarded a community grant, I want to let you know that you will be required to submit an updated budget proposal with your grant agreement. So in the past, if you are awarded a grant, you just sign the grant agreement and then we're pretty much done and we can issue funds. What we want to do this year is actually get an updated budget proposal for the amount that you were awarded. So this will just make it really clear on what you're planning to spend the funds on, and it's a good accountability mechanism for the city to have on hand. So make sure you keep all of your original copies of what you submit in your grant application. And of course, if you don't have access or copies, you can ask me and I'd be happy to send them to you. One last thing that I wanted to bring up that was discussed at the city council meeting on February 6th was that staff had brought an option to the city council to update the social services category and broaden it to this kind of new category called community services. This change was ultimately not approved by the city council, but council member Donovan and Downey are going to be reevaluating the social services category, and then they're going to be bringing potential changes by the end of this year to kind of refine the category. So any implemented changes to social services or that category will go into effect in the following grant cycle, which will be fiscal year 25-26. But this year, there is no changes to the grant categories. They're all the same as last year. All the rubrics are the same. So just look forward to that, though, for potentially later this year and then for next year that we might see some changes within that social services category. All right, so now I want to go through an application walkthrough. So I'm gonna sit up and get on my computer now so I can see everything. So the application is gonna be found on the city's website. So if you click here and you'll see the city's website, I'm actually gonna pull up our preview page. So this is the city's website that will be live tomorrow. It is not published yet, so you're on a little preview. But if you scroll down here, you'll see the introduction to the grant program, you'll see our eligibility requirements, and then you'll see community grant program application links. And below that, you will see 4 links to the grant applications. We have the arts and culture application, community pride sense of place application, economic development application, and social services application. So when you're going in to apply, make sure that you're clicking the right link for the right element that you are planning to apply to. So for instance, if you're in community pride, go ahead and click that. And this is what it will look like. Comparatively, if you clicked arts and culture, it would say arts and culture, fiscal year 24-25 grant application or community pride. So once you click the link, you're in. There's no password, there's no passcode. You just click the link and you'll get to this page and then you press start filling. And you'll see at the top here, it says Community Pride Sense of Place grant application. And then it's gonna give you a little blurb on what the grant category is, as well as just kind of, again, broader information about the grant program, kind of reinforcing that over and over again. And then this little blurb here that says, please note this application is for Community Pride Sense of Place grants only. So if you're applying, make sure you click the right link that corresponds with what category, and then you'll pull up right to the application and fill it in accordingly. So all of the kind of basic information in the application is the exact same as last year. So it should be pretty straightforward to fill this top section out. Of course, down here we have the grant request. So you do your title, grant request amount, total program budget, grant type, and then selecting whether you're submitting multiple grant applications. Remember, organizations can submit a maximum of 3 grant applications. Some program information, which is the same as last year. And then you can print your title, sign, and date your application. So that's kind of the easy part. Then we get into the program narrative and budget proposal. So last year, if you applied, you know that the program narrative, or kind of the like big open-ended questions, were embedded right into the application. So that was a bit of a logistical issue because the formatting was really off on them. So what I did was I just made them a PDF. So like the budget proposal, what you're going to do when you come to the program narrative is just save the document. It has like a little download button. You can save it right to your files, and then you can open it in Adobe and fill it out and save it, and then you can re-upload it right here. So that was the same process that we did last year for the budget proposal, and it worked really well. So I'm hoping for the same thing this year. So don't fill it in directly in here. Make sure to download the program narrative, fill it out on your computer, save it to your computer, and then re-upload it right here where it says completed program narrative. Same thing for the budget proposal. You're going to download the budget proposal. You're going to save it to your documents. You're then going to pull up the budget proposal on your Adobe reader or your PDF reader. You're going to fill it out, save it to your documents, and then re-upload it to the grant application right here. So you can just browse your files, get to where you need to go, and upload it. You can see I have just a test document here that I can upload. Going through really quickly the budget narrative, it's the exact same as last year. So that should be easy for everybody. It's basically just a ledger of all of the anticipated costs that you're expecting for the program, as well as the request amounts. You total them at the bottom. That's your easy budget proposal. We're also asking financial support from other sources, which we did last year. So that should be fairly, again, straightforward to fill out. The other one is the program narrative. I had this arts and culture one saved on my computer already, so I could pull it up easily. As you can see here, it does ask applicants to limit responses to about 500 words, but if you need to or wish to attach additional pages, you are more than welcome to. So you can do that directly on this document. You can just attach pages as needed. Questions are pretty similar to last year. We have proposal summary or executive summary. And then I have added little prompts here that kind of say, like, describe the purpose for which grant funding is being sought. Same here with past performance, so describing the history and prior impacts of your proposed event or project. Organizational capacity, provide a brief history of your organization. Activity alignment, describe how your proposed event strengthens and or diversifies the arts in Coronado, etc. Artistic integrity, as well as community benefit. And you can see that all of these questions are directly correlated or consistent with what's on the rubric. So it's just being a little bit more specific for your grant elements. So we have community benefit leverage, which is any additional funding sources you're getting for the project. And then there is one last additional question that's new this year that's called reporting. So if you were a grant recipient last year, we are asking applicants to write a little blurb on how they've spent last year's funds. And that's pretty much it. You just have to write a paragraph. It's mostly for the city council to kind of reflect on if the funding from last year is being used effectively. So if you didn't receive a grant last year, don't worry about this question, but if you did, definitely answer it and just give a little blurb on how that grant funding is being spent. So now let's go back to the application. So those are the two: download, fill out, save, and re-upload. You do that right here. And then kind of the same situation here is all of the required supporting documents. So again, these are all the same from last year. So we're requesting a W-9, IRS Form 990, past 3 years of financial statements, your IRS nonprofit determination letter, a screenshot of California Attorney General current or exempt status. I have a link here where you can search for your organization. So you can copy and paste that into your browser and go directly to the Attorney General site. And same with the Secretary of State active status. I have a link right here that you can copy and paste and search your organization and then upload a screenshot saying that you are active or exempt. One little tip, and I'll get into this more a little bit later, I suppose, but I do want to say that if you have all of your documents just saved on a file in your computer, it'll make it super easy to just, here, let's see, 990, or we'll go here, to just drag and drop right in. So you can do it kind of all at once and just drag all your documents in, and it just makes things easier. So kind of staying organized with all of the required documents, because I know it is a lot. The very last question on the application is additional support documents. So again, this is the same as last year. You can submit, or you must submit at least one of the 3 documents listed here, which is name and bios of 3 employees, or your board member names, roles, and terms, or your personnel and anti-nepotism policies. If you have all 3 on hand, you're more than welcome to submit all 3. This just will kind of help your organizational capacity question for the grant readers. They might ask for it. They might want to see the breakdown of your nonprofits board, things like that. So it just kind of helps give a better picture of how your organization operates. You only have to submit 1 though, because I know that not all organizations have employees, or some organizations have different board structures. So kind of up to you, but if you have any questions on that in the process, of course, feel free to reach out to me and I can try to help assist you. So that is basically the grant application. Again, it's pretty straightforward. If you applied last year, it's very, very similar. You have the opportunity to preview the PDF as you fill it out. So if you click that, it'll show you what the PDF application will look like. And this is kind of the form that I print out for the grant packets. So it just makes all the questions look a little prettier. And then of course you can save it as you go. And then when you click continue after you fill everything out, it'll take you to the submission page. And that's pretty much it on the application. So now I'll try to get back to my PowerPoint. Here we are. Okay, back to the PowerPoint now. So just a few quick tips that I want to go over. You can only work on 1 application at a time. I remember this being a question last year, and so I just wanted to reemphasize, if you're submitting multiple applications, you're going to want to get started so that you can submit 1 and then submit the next one, then submit the next one. You can't work on them simultaneously. And I don't want anyone to override their work on any application, so just be cautious of that. I recommend reviewing all of the required documentation and saving the files on your folder, or saving them in a file on your computer ahead of time. Like I kind of showed you, it just makes uploading all of the documents a lot easier. And that grant program instruction form actually lists all of the required documentation that you're required to submit. So you can reference that and kind of save all the documents ahead of time, and then it makes uploading a lot easier. I really recommend using the rubrics to assist you in writing the program narrative. So the rubrics are public. They have not changed for the past couple of years now. So I recommend referencing them, or at least looking at them, reading through them, because it should help you kind of craft your grant narratives. I recommend saving the application as you go. Don't want you to get the end of it and lose all of your work. Another kind of tip for this is you can write all of your responses in a Word document or something else on your computer, just to make sure you have a backup if you do lose anything. Next tip is to submit the application early. Please do not wait until March 31st to submit. Again, that is a Sunday. I do not want to work on Sunday night, so please get it in early. Late applications will not be submitted. So make sure you give yourself time in case there are any issues. And after you submit the application, please make sure to save a copy or reach out to me and I can send you a copy if you need it. Jotform is really good. It'll email you a copy of your application, and it'll also, when you submit it, it'll pop up a page that has everything that you submitted, including all the PDFs. So it's pretty easy to see and download from there if you need any of that. So that was a ton of information, but that is going to conclude my presentation at this point. So I am now available for any questions. If anyone wants to go back through anything, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, but that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.